All right, hello wine-drinking people. It's time for more of what I've had to drink yesterday. And when the group from the Hollywood Wine Society calls me up and says we've got a tasting going on, usually I will clear my calendar. And this tasting I've known about for some time, as Dr. Bob Maliner called me up and let me know we're going to be drinking Petrus and several other great Merlots at a Merlot tasting coming up in June. Please mark it on your calendar. And I immediately, of course, marked it on my calendar. And, you know, several things came up and I said, nope, sorry, I am busy, very busy. And tasting the world's greatest wines, the most important part of my job, and any chance that I get to taste a wine like Petrus along with 11 other very high quality Merlots from around the world, man, I'll clear the schedule. And you know, Chateau Petrus, some say that it is overpriced, and well, anything in the $1,000 price range is most people would consider it overpriced for something you're just going to get 4 glasses of. But Petrus really is unique and does stand on its own, and it was kind of fun and interesting to see this wine in the last flight blind. So we saw some examples of Italian Merlots, California Merlots, and of course Bordeaux's, mostly Pomerols on the table this evening, and then we got to try them blinded. There was a few people that actually mistook the California Merlot for the Petrus, but I would say most of the group, very skilled tasters, and picked out the Petrus out of that group. And definitely easy to pick out the two Bordeaux amongst the group after you've had the California and the Italian stuff, but some great wines on the table. We started out with Paul Meyer Merlot. This wine made by Helen Turley, the 1996 vintage, an outstanding year in Napa Valley. This wine had lovely ripe cassis and plum fruit on the nose with hints of mint and dark chocolate, violet, pretty floral notes, and really exotic bouquet. Still had wonderful fruit on the palate, really dark and rich black fruit, plum, cassis, and also black raspberry coulis, really decadent dark earth and dark chocolate and that minty quality there. Also a really lovely wine, a blockbuster, still has 10 years of life in it. This was one of my candidates for wines of the night. Absolutely most excellent. The Trotanoy also in this flight. A lot of people thought this was a candidate for wine of the night. Definitely wine of the flight. This wine is always exotic to me. I love it. I think Parker always underscores it. A really complex bouquet of aromas: chocolate, dark plum fruit on the nose, tobacco, spice, mocha, black truffle. Really exotic, like I said before. Just continuing to reveal more and more. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to let this sit in the glass for hours, but lovely, smooth and polished on the palate with a silky smooth texture. All of that nuance from the nose coming through on the finish. Lots of depth, great structure, and still quite young, this 95 Trotanoy. 95 Ornellaia Massetto, the most famous Merlot made in Italy, the very first vintage in 1986. And 1995 was a good vintage for them, but I wouldn't say it's the greatest Massetto I've ever had. It had a lovely nose of toffee, tobacco, spice, milk chocolate, some cedary notes to the red plum and cherry fruit on the nose. Maybe just a little light on the fruit in the mid-palate. Still had some tannics at the finish. So an excellent bottle of Merlot, but, you know, fell a little short in this first flight, which was my favorite flight of the night. The Tua Rita Red Agave, just absolutely mind-blowing stuff. Had this kind of exotic nose as well: raw meat, menthol, dark plum, cherry fruit, notes of dark chocolate. Had that kind of typical Tuscan terroir, though, a little more distinct kind of earthy character to this wine, and a lovely amount of fruit still on the palate. Lovely plush velvety texture. One of the things I love about Merlot, the texture on Merlot is one of the telltale signs to me that it's Merlot as opposed to Cabernet, and that lovely nuance, that chocolate, that raw meat, and the menthol kind of showing up on the finish as well. Most excellent. Like I said, the first flight for me, flight of the night. The best wines, I always say drink the best wines first, so you know, that's living up to my reputation here. Chateau Cannon, 1982, another candidate for wine of the night. I don't know how many times I'm going to say this tasting, but you know, a lot of great wines on the table. Dry tobacco, spice, fine herbs, toffee, kind of fresh earth, slightly metallic note to the nose on this, but very smooth and polished on the tongue with a texture of silk. The 82 Cannon, just drinking spectacularly right now. Soft and velvety tannins. This property went through a little period of decline. It's owned by the people that own Chanel now. They've really put a lot of money and investment back into Cannon. Again, one of the top properties in Saint Emilion in a vintage like 1982. It's hard to find a nicer wine than this, especially to drink right now. Absolutely beautiful, long, balanced finish, most excellent juice. All right, an 83 Duckhorn 3 Palm. Three Palms, a very famous vineyard in Napa. Only 2 people make Three Palms, Sterling and Duckhorn. This is an 83 vintage. 83 not considered a very good vintage in Napa. And this wine really showed that, kind of lightness on the palate, but it still had a nice nose, a kind of minty eucalyptusy note shown to that red plum and cherry fruit. A little bit of oxidation, though, starting to show up in this wine. Really light and soft on the palate, with some tannins still showing up on the finish, but the fruit really starting to fade in this wine. A little vegetal note there also. To me, the least appealing wine on the table. The 1988 Castello di Alma Vigna La Parita, a single vineyard Merlot from this famous producer in Tuscany. Fresh earth, kind of underbrush, mocha, mushroomy notes, sun-dried plum on the nose, showing a bit of oxidization to the nose there too, but that fruit really nice and firm on the palate. Cherry and plum, still quite a bit of tannins on the finish, maybe a little bit hard-edged, but showing that smooth and silky nature still of Merlot, which is a hallmark. Excellent juice. The 1989 La Fleur de Gay was next, and this is a small 10-hectare plot of La Croix de Gay owned by Alain Renault, and a lovely nose on this wine. Just tobacco, spice, smoke, old saddle leather, kind of slight medicinal, kind of Band-Aid Brett note to it, but not off-putting at all. Lovely red cherry and currant berry fruit, smooth and silky on the tongue with a nice balance. Drinking at its peak right now. This 89 vintage was a warm year. These wines open up rather quickly and drink really nice. This silky smooth texture on the finish, that dried tobacco spice, an excellent bottle of wine, the 89 La Fleur de Gay. All right, well, Flight 3, like I've said before, was served blind, and there's a few people that did mistake the Paloma for the Petrus, which I don't get that at all, because the Paloma had to be like 15% alcohol. Not that they're not making higher alcohol wines that in Bordeaux today, but back in 1999, still, 13.5% is, kind of average for Bordeaux. They served the 99 Petrus, the 01 Paloma, the 99 Tenuta San Gisto Arentenano La Ricoma, and then the Chateau Latour a Pomerol, 1998. And these were blind, but they were served in the same order as they were on the sheet. So I had to double check myself several times, because initially I tasted them and I said they're in the same order as they're on the sheet. He couldn't have made it this easy, but they did. Thank you, Mel. And the 99 Petrus, what makes this wine unique is it's on the plateau in Pomerol, and it is like almost 100% of this blue clay, which everyone knows that Merlot likes clay, but this blue clay that they have in Pomerol is really special and is what makes Pomerol special. It's the only area in Bordeaux that has this soil type, and it's just produces this incredibly dense wine, dense Merlot that has a distinct minerality to about it, and that fresh clay, minty herbal notes, dark cocoa, plum, cherry fruit with some smoky highlights. A little bit closed on the nose at first, but Petrus always is when young, but starting to open up nicely in the glass. A little more time with this because it was the last flight. Very smooth and silky on the tongue. Again, just a little bit closed, but still had this lovely, long, permeating finish and that distinct minerality to me that is Chateau Petrus. Most excellent juice. Definitely one of the wines of the night. The 2001 Palermo Merlot. This was the wine of the year in the Wine Spectator in 2003. It's on Spring Mountain. It's right across the street from Schwager. Andy Schwager actually planted the vineyard. This wine just screamed California to me. It was a few points higher in alcohol. The color was darker on it. Just rich and decadent on the nose. Dark cherry, kind of liqueur-like fruit. Dark spices, sweet brown sugar, kind of blackberry jam. Really well endowed still. And this wine was just sweet next to the other wines on the palate. Still very balanced though. Had this lovely freshness and spice, even though it was a little over the top in sweetness next to the other wines. The Tenuta San Gisto Arentenano La Ricoma. This wine showing lovely Bordeaux-like qualities, and this was, these last two, I kind of flip-flopped after a while, thinking, okay, well, these could be two that were mixed up, but yeah, in the end, they were pretty evident. The Latour Pomerol was Bordeaux. It had this lovely coffee character that the Tenuta San Gisto did not, and it did have that Tuscan earthy character. This one had some herbal qualities as well to that dark cherry and plum fruit, and a slight vegetal note, like a green pepper quality, but still lovely balance, nothing off-putting on the nose here, and lovely structure on the palate. 99, a very structured vintage, and still quite tannic here. This wine needed a little time. That herbal quality showing through on the finish, as well as a solid core of fruit. Excellent juice. And then the last one, the Latour a Pomerol, that smoky coffee character, just giving away that this wine was the Bordeaux, and lovely kind of old saddle leather, a little sweet molasses kind of quality shown to the herbs and red currant and plum fruit on the nose. A great vintage for Pomerol. The terroir here was just no match for the Petrus. It just goes to show you 99 vintage Petrus, not near as good a vintage as 98, but just a much better pedigree Petrus than Latour Pomerol. But still really nice, soft, and stylish. Very elegant wine. Should still drink for another decade or more, but showing really nicely right now. Oh, I'm sorry, we got extra. The 1992 Fonseca Vintage Port. I love port, and a great way to end the evening. A little something sweet. I never do dessert, but I like to have a little sweet wine. This wine's got a good bit of dark earth still to it, and black spice on the nose, licorice to that dark cherry liqueur-like fruits. Lovely complexity here. This wine's still quite tannic on the tongue, though. A good bit of that dark earth and licorice spice showing through on the finish. This wine's got a little bit of heat. Still needs a little time to resolve those tannins, but really well balanced and a lot going on here. Most excellent juice. The 92 Fonseca. That's what we had to drink with the Hollywood Wine Society. I'm your host, Andrew Lamposoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying remember, always drink the good stuff first.